Welcome to the Andrew D'Angelo podcast.
Constant Constance. Each week, Andrew, renowned jazz saxophonist and brain cancer survivor, invites us to look at the many worlds of his guests, with conversations that cover all the arts, human resilience, a little bit of politics, and a lot of humour.
You can't fail to have a fantastic time.
Good to see you, Andy.
Good to see you too, Christopher. You're gonna call me Andy? Oh no,
Andrew. Good to see you, Andrew.
Call me Andy, man.
I could do your Brooklyn. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Andy?
Hey, I've been in Brooklyn for 6 months. How you doing?
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And I'm so excited today. I have my very longtime friend, Christopher Speed. Well, Chris Speed. He's a tenor player, clarinet player. He also plays piano, although I don't know if he would claim that, and is an amazing composer, a huge inspiration in my life. He is absolutely, and also a label owner, and he's wearing his Squirrel hat. Well, you're wearing your Squirrel Records. And I'm so incredibly thankful for you to be here, Chris, because I know that you and I have had our differences over the years, so I really appreciate it. And we're gonna discuss his music. We're gonna just talk about life during COVID, but also just find out what Chris has been doing. I know you said you did a masterclass about a week ago or something.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Andrew. And obviously the feeling is mutual. Like, we've known each other. I mean, yeah, you were one of my oldest friends ever, and such a big influence, especially in the early days, man. It's fun to look back. And I have to say, I was mentioning to you that I just, looking for projects to do, I just finished a solo clarinet project, and I was trying to keep it sort of on the down low with you, but I was spending a lot of time with a song of yours that we recorded with Human Feel called Spasos Trium. And I was really approaching it like learning like a new piece, like a Bach partita per se. And I've approached it in that sense. And it's it gave me I have so much respect for your compositions and your process, especially back in the day, when we were quite close. Like your ability to compose, just your process going about it, your prolificness, the amount of music that you made and the quality of it was like always inspiring. And it was really fun to revisit a song that I always loved, and but to get back deep into it, like with my 53-year-old brain as opposed to my 23-year-old brain. And I feel like it holds up, and anyway, all I'm saying is like, it was just nice to get close to your soul again, even if it was, written 30 years ago. And I that process of like playing somebody's music, you can't not sort of feel like an intimate connection with them, and going through that process, and then also having had a real intimate, relationship with you. It just made it very heavy to do. So like I wanted to like sort of surprise you with it, but you can hear it later or not. But just the results, whatever, who cares? But just like the process for me for like all summer working on your piece, like constantly was super enlightening and fun and inspiring. And it just made me rekindled like my love of your music. So
I have to say, I want to say this. First of all, thank you, Chris. Thank you. But the reality is that I did everything to try to please you. I don't know if it came across that way to you, but I remember writing songs. I'd stay up all night and write a composition, and I'd show it to you, and you're like, you can do better. I was like, okay, I'll write something different. You were always challenging me, and that's a positive thing. That is not a negative thing.
Yeah, I think humans, aren't we always trying to like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm interpreting what you're saying is like, you want to write music that you're colleagues want to play and be challenged by. And like, I totally got that from you. Like, but if I'm going to go back, then I don't think you were writing what's Chris gonna like. I think you were writing the music you were hearing, knowing that we were gonna like love it and play it and like work on it and make it work. And I think when you joke about like maybe we were like tough on each other, I think that's all good and part of the process, and that we were like close enough where that we could go there. We're like, you know, like instead it's not like, you know, maybe if you're a sideman in somebody's band where you're like, you know, everything's good and you don't ever go there with sort of, you know, because that joke will get your own band, you know, if you have some suggestions or something. But like with a band like Human Feel, or just the way we work together since we were so young and probably didn't know sort of the decorum or the rules or whatever, like we would just be like, that sucks, man. Or, you know what I'm saying? And I think that for music, I think that's good. And I know like, over the years, I mean, that's certainly not the first time that, you know, we probably insulted each other or not, you know, and it probably won't be the last.
It's challenge.
Well, in any case, like,
I like it.
In the moment, sometimes we take it as an insult. I'm not saying that's even the thing to talk about, but like, if I ever said like, you can do better, I would probably be like, man, that's cool. You know, do this just because, you know, we want to challenge each other to make our best work. Or maybe I thought it sucked and I know that you could do, I don't know. I certainly couldn't talk. I mean, I'm just like was, you know, worrying about my own compositions and knowing they sucked. So I was probably just like, fuck, God, this song, you know, whatever it is, like in retrospect, like all that stuff is just sort of like fun, like, you know, banter, where like the reality is like we were all writing music that would challenge each other and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make this even weirder, or, you know, like just, and I think that was good for the band at that point of like really kind of for making new music, you know.
My memory, I agree with you, Chris, and my memory, especially with that song, with that piece, I guess I'll call it a piece, Fossilis Trium, was like, you should try displacing the octaves. Were you studying with George Russell, the composer, George Russell, or Dr. McKinley, or maybe Ram Blake or something? No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was at NEC, but
New England Conservatory, for those who don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I I mean, that's so funny because I don't think they have anything to do with what we were. I mean, we were so kind of focused on what we were doing. We didn't need any of that. Like, I think my idea when you would bring in a song like that and we were talking about like, how can we make this more jagged or really like stretch it or make it something really cool. I think that idea of like making the intervals as wide as possible, I think that just came from maybe a more of a, even a classical sort of background. I don't think studying with Rand, I mean, I respect all those guys, but you know, studying with Rand, obviously like that was like developing ear training, and George Russell was like, yeah, a great composer, but it was just kind of playing his compositions. And then McKinley I didn't study with, but he was also a great composer. I wish I studied with him, but he was a great composer. I played with his son a bit. You remember his son? Elliot played trumpet.
Elliot McKinley's going to come on the show, actually.
What? Wow, great.
People probably don't know because you don't talk about it that I know of. When I met you, you were in Youth Symphony. You played clarinet. I think you played piano in Youth Symphony. You can correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong.
Do you want me to? I was playing clarinet in the Seattle Junior Symphony probably when I met you, and then the Youth Symphony later, because you had some Roosevelt buddies. What was her name? She also played clarinet.
I don't know.
Anyway, there was a hotshot clarinet player from your school that was in the symphony. She might have. Anyway, Seattle. Yes, I played Seattle Youth Symphony, and I was also doing like those solo ensemble, like those young artist competitions on both clarinet and piano. I was also playing classical piano. So when I met you, I was just sort of learning jazz, and one of my favorite stories that probably you want to tell is like, you know, because we hit it off when we met in H.B. Radke's band, which is another story to tell. But
H.B. and Company.
when you invited me over to your house for a jam session, and I thought we were going to have a jam session, and then you pulled out some Aebersold records, and I was like, what are those? Like, I was really from the sticks there.
I actually remember that, to be honest.
Yeah, playing with, you know, the Charlie Parker, Jamie Aebersold record, and I was just like, wow, okay, it's a jam session. And
Right.
yeah, that was new for me. And then also you're going to make that joke about then me arpeggiating chords, you know, like, okay, when you solo, you.
I wasn't going to make that joke. What the only thing I was going to my finale of asking you that question was that I don't think people understand what a prodigy you were and that you are, like, even as a young kid, that you just had this really prodigious, you know, way of making music, whether it was jazz or classical or whatever. And we were all like, God, this kid is fucking good. And you were, you know, you were a short guy. Remember, you held your tenor in your legs, in your feet, because you were a short dude, but you could play the hell out of the instrument, even at like age 14 or 15, whatever age it was. And
wow, well,
that's the picture I wanted to paint. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about, I remember the Aebersold. I remember giving you a hard time for arpeggiating the chords, but I still don't know what an A7 chord is. And I'm like 80 years old. So, you know, like,
that
there
is
you
funny.
go. And, you know, when I tell people, you know, in passing, that you also played really nice piano, at least in my memory, they're like, no way. And I was like, yeah, Chris was a prodigy, or is a, whatever that is a prodigy. So
Well,
that's where I was going.
If I can jump in, I mean, it's fun to like actually rap with somebody who's, you know, known me for that long. I did study classical piano. I think prodigy, I mean, I think I was like, I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to make music, and I was just sort of, you know, doing the best I could in the situation that I was in, you know, living in the suburbs and sort of just you know, being pretty scrappy with how to, you know, learn. And I was lucky I had teachers that were caring. And so like, yeah, I did play piano, and I could get around. I had a pretty solid repertoire, you know, like Bach and Mozart and Beethoven but prodigy, I mean, I remember doing those contests and just really getting sort of creamed by, you know, other, you know, musicians that were my age that were just, you know, perhaps more fall under the prodigy. I was no Glenn Gould, let's say, but I took music seriously, and I remember practicing and also doing sports, you know, like I was, I guess, pretty well-rounded in that degree. But then when I got into jazz music, I sort of dropped everything else and kind of really tried to focus on that in the way that I could. And obviously, like, I've talked about this, you know, like I definitely know what it's like to have to unlearn some things, you know, because when you're young and it's like, you know, you get a real book and you just like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to learn jazz. So there was a lot of sort of, you know, bad mistakes that I've had to unlearn, you know, that, you know, we got at that age. But yeah, thanks for, you know, remembering that. But I was pretty good. But I think it was more like I just was like,
you were pretty good, Chris. You were pretty fucking good, man.
I was
and
just
that's
focused
all
on.
I was trying to say is you were pretty fucking good, and we all looked up to you. Well,
okay, so. So on that note, now I get to sort of talk for a little bit about you, and like one thing that really impressed me with you was sort of this drive that you had to, like, you know, do what you wanted to do in your way. Like, you know, you were just like, this is how I'm going to play big, you know, you were coming out of this very, you know, strong big band pedagogy, like, you know, with Waldo at Roosevelt High School. So, you know, very strong, big band, conservative, you know, way of playing the saxophone. And I just remember early on, like, you getting these Ornette records and being like, I'm going to do something else. And we were able to sort of navigate, you know, the big band, you know, sound and styles, and also like start to carve out this very idiosyncratic way of playing, which I found me and, you know, everybody else found very compelling. And like this drive that you had to sort of do it your way at all costs was, super inspiring, especially like when we were in high school. And then when you went to Central, like, just what you were working on. And then your whole thing of like, I'm moving to New York, and you did it. You moved to New York and you did it. And that sort of drive to sort of like kind of pursue, your goals of being a, creative artist, you always applied it to like, not only to your music and your saxophone playing, but just your way of living, your way of seeing the world. And, very, very inspiring, to me. And I can remember like, like getting some of your compositions and just being like, what, where did this come from? Like, I mean, we were playing like, Little Brown Jug, in a big band. And all of a sudden you're writing this very, very like, very personal music that was jazz related, but, also had its own thing. And I still find that inspiring, and really shaped like my early views of what it means to be, an artist and a musician. And it's sort of, I probably would have been maybe more of a, I don't know, hindsight's, 2020, but like perhaps like if you weren't in my life back then, I might've been more of a Joe saxophone player, like maybe more of a straight ahead person. I don't know. I mean,
so you're saying I ruined your life is pretty much just what you're saying, right? Well, how does Little Brown Jug go? Do 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 do. How does that go? I don't remember.
I think you got the first phrase right, but just go up a step instead of the fourth. Da 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 da. Didn't we do that?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like, and with H.B. Radke, we did like Glenn Miller, all those wartime hits, and like some Duke Ellington, but not enough bassy. But
no, it was all
more like
white composers, man.
It was like Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw, and
Woody Herman.
But we did some of that Benny Moten stuff. I mean, that's Count Basie. We did some of that stuff. But God, I just so badly.
Well, I was okay. First of all, I just want to say this on camera and in front of you, Chris, that I want people to know that Chris and I met in this child. I don't know what you call it. It was a child big band that played weddings and parties, and we did all this big band music from the.
It was a big band led by the son of Fred Radke, who played trumpet with Harry James.
Right, but the reality is Fred Radke, who played trumpet with Harry James, did not care how we sounded. He was all about, he was just like putting on the spectacle, right? Of like these young kids.
I have to disagree there. I think we rehearsed. How could he not care about the music? I think we just were young, and like, and he maybe jazz education wasn't his strong point, like he was just a player who had a son, and he was just trying to like help his son do what his son wanted to do, which is basically probably, be like his dad and front a band. And I think, I mean, obviously the band, well, whatever, it wasn't super swinging, let's say, but, like it brought kids together, who were maybe interested in that music. And like, I mean, that's how I met you and, John Silverman and Jim
Black. Yeah. Right.
And Arnold Hammerschlag.
Yeah.
So it's a nice meeting point for kids who were, into weird music. And so whether the band was good or not, it's sort of, that's, who cares, but
that's my point, is it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I remember Fred telling me, it doesn't matter how you sound, just look good. Like, wear your tuxedo. And
okay.
Get up there, look good. And Arnold Hammerschlag, who Chris is referring to, is a trumpet player who I still know, who lives down the block, is like, yeah, I remember Fred saying, just like, make sure you dress nice for the gig. Like he was never concerned about us, like, nailing anything. Now,
Uh,
yeah, well, I don't know if
disagree.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, I mean, what are we talking about here? Yeah, we wore suits. Yeah. We had to wear a blue blazer or and a tie, because the last time I owned a blue blazer and a tie.
So Chris, if I actually, can we shift gears here and get like kind of like more me asking you questions about your music?
Yeah, sure.
So you have this new trio with Chris Tordini on bass and Dave King from the Bad Plus on drums.
Mhm.
And you've made several records, right? I
Yeah,
think
we made three
Right.
records. Yeah.
Respect Your Toughness and Platinum on Top and Really Okay. Is that correct?
That's close. Respect For Your Toughness.
Yeah, For Your Toughness. Sorry.
Platinum on Tap.
Right.
And Really Okay.
So when you, sorry, I just don't have my glasses on. And by the way, yours are reflecting the light.
I know, it sucks. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Respect For Your Toughness, correct?
Yes.
And Platinum on Tap and Really Okay are the three records you made with your latest trio with Chris Tordini on bass and Dave King on drums. I'm curious about the titles. I love the music. I've seen that band live a few times.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out.
Hey, you're very welcome. I'm a big fan. But can you just give people a glimpse into your process there? Like how do you name your records? Like if you feel like telling us what those titles mean? Or...
Sure. I mean, again, coming back to you, Andrew, like you are the king of titles. I mean, what you come up with is always creative and fun and goofy, and also like, what is that? Oh, it's my name mangled. Got it. Okay. But coming up with titles, dealing with, music that isn't lyric based. Yeah. It can be a process, a strenuous, stressful one too, if you have a deadline coming up. I mean, I try to come up with titles before the fact, but sometimes you come up with them after, and I don't know, it's sort of like compositional process. I just kind of play around and see what sticks, and with titles, maybe just keep notes, ideas, whatever. But Really Okay was pretty clear. I mean, that's, obviously that phrase that we, you get to hear maybe in Europe after a gig, that was really okay. I much prefer the first set, so that was sort of a pun. I guess it's not really a pun, it's a reference to that. And sort of my tradition of self-deprecating titles. And Platinum on Tap is that was sort of a band group effort. Tough travel day. I think we were going from Italy to Portugal and drove from Verona to the Venice airport, returned the rental car, and then sat in did I say Rome? I meant Venice, Marco Polo airport. I think we sat there for 9 hours.
Oh my God.
Basically arrived in Lisbon, and we were like, 2 hours late. I'm maybe exaggerating.
Close enough.
We started the gig, like an hour at least late. It was just so, it's like everybody's nightmare, just stressing and just sitting in. Anyway, so Platinum on Tap, it's sort of a play on travel, and TAP being the Portuguese airline. And
TAP is a terrible airline. And I don't mind saying that on air, because I'm like, and also, I don't think people really understand. They're like, man, don't you miss being on tour and like, traveling? I'm like, well, I miss parts of it. Of course, I miss the hangs, I miss the shows, but this stuff, like 9 hours in a rental place or in a car, or like,
it's grunt work, man.
Yeah,
it's like I mean, in the moment, it's fine. We're just dealing. Okay, this is what it is. You just got to go with it. But like thinking back, like, it's like not fun. But that's what, people don't get. Like, it's not just being on stage and getting to make music with your colleagues. It's like getting there. That's the obviously, and musicians all know this. That's the
right. But from the outside, people look at us and they're like, man, you could go on the road. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love being on tour. It's totally fine. But I remember one time you and I were on the road together, and I said, how are you doing? And you said, yeah, I got 15 minutes of sleep last night. We had like a 4:30 a.m.,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I slept like 15 minutes. I was like, oh my God. And we have to take 2 flights, right?
Yeah,
Check in,
I mean,
and like
we
all
all
that
know
stuff.
that, but like, people
Not
don't want to
everybody
hear
knows it, right?
Yeah, we know it, but like nobody wants to. What are you gonna? It's like we're gonna sound like a bunch of whiners, like, But yeah, there's nights you don't sleep and you still have to
Right.
play, and people don't get it, and they never will, and that's how it is. Because like, how do you? It's not interesting, It's like, but yeah, we all know it, and that's why. Yeah, that's why touring. Yeah, you have to really sort of want to do it to kind of deal with that, and also it's just the uncertainty of traveling and like having stuff like that happen, like your flights were canceled all day because there was a strike in Italy. It's
Right.
you just kind of have to run with it anyway. So platinum, I think Dave King was platinum, so we got in the lounge, but on tap anyway. So that was big mystery. And then the last title was just something. Dave King is also, besides being one of the greatest musicians living, he's also great, very funny person, and great at coming up with meaningful titles. And he helped me with that one, the respect for your toughness. I think that comes out of both Dave and I used to wrestle, and we've gone at it a few drunken nights, as you probably remember. We used to go at it back in the day.
I do.
Except unfortunately, unlike when you and I would wrestle, Dave got the better of me really quick, and so that's the respect for your toughness.
Right.
I mean, it was, I gave it an effort, but man, he's really strong and really a much better wrestler. And yeah.
No, I mean, you and I are, I don't know what our height difference is, but it's probably 5 or 6 inches, something like that, different. And you would kick my ass, dude.
Back in the day,
very good.
Yeah. I mean, that's
good.
the thing. Like, if you have a few skills, you can take somebody bigger than you down, but that's back when we were a little more flexible. I
don't know, man. I started running again. Like, I've been jogging
good for you.
August, and everybody was giving me, pushback, like, man, you're too old, or like, you had blah blah brain blah cancer. I was like, yeah, but I at least got to try. I got to do something.
Yeah.
So I just started running, and it's been great.
Great. Right on. I mean, I hear you. Like, it's like, I think a lot of my sort of bad, like, feeling comes from like not exercising, also not playing or not getting all that, but like just not exercising. I mean, I get to chase my 3-year-old around, so that keeps me in some sort of shape. But yeah, that need to exercise, I miss that as well. So good, keep doing it.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Listen, man, I have a question for you. And usually what I do is I ask people if they have questions for my guests. And your wife asked a question, and she asked, has your daughter inspired any songs? I think he has a few, or maybe some silly songs he makes up for her at home. Do you compose for your daughter? Have you written a song or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10? Do you jam with her?
You're telling me Leah asked you a question?
Your wife, Leah Paul, the amazing composer. Yes.
Well, I guess if she would listen to my recording, she yes, I've written some songs for Marnie, and some playful songs. I mean, obviously when you're a parent, you do a lot more singing than not. So yeah, yes, of course. Marnie, spelled without an E, boom, boom, this kind of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So that's cool, because you would think, like, you wonder if what composers had children. Did Beethoven have children? I don't know. Or like,
right. Well, obviously, you don't, need to have children to be inspired to compose music, obviously. But I think just, there's definitely songs that I've wanted to sort of like, point to that, point to her. But I think it's just a inspiration of this new life, it just kind of makes things better, there's that, I guess,
And I mean, you became a parent at 50, right? That was
I
your
did. I
that was
just
your
turned
first
50.
child.
Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, that is, when I talk to my mom or people in her generation, she's 78 now. I mean, they had kids when they were like 18.
Yeah.
And for them to fathom having a child at
I know
50 is just like,
grandparent.
yeah, it's like, can you, if you're comfortable, and if you're not comfortable, that's fine. What was that like? I mean, to live 50 years of your life and then all of a sudden have a child, I mean, I'm just curious.
Right. Well, I guess when you have a child, you don't have as much time to sort of maybe indulge in that kind of process. I mean, you just deal, and I feel very fortunate, and I'm very lucky to be with my wife, and very lucky to have a beautiful child. And that's kind of it, like, I guess you can play sort of, some sort of mental games of like, wow, when she's 20, I'm going to be 70, like, but I'm just trying to be in the moment, like, I don't know, being a musician, or, living a musician's life or artistic life kind of prepares you to deal with a lot of unknowns. And I feel like I can be a good, responsible parent and still, do what I need to do in the world, which is make music. And I guess the biggest thing is I don't probably have any fear or any worry that like I'm missing out on anything. Like, maybe if you have a kid when you're super young, you maybe feel like you can't do stuff that you wanted to do, like move somewhere, you know what I'm saying? So like, I feel at least my age, having a kid at 50 is like, I've kind of done what I'm going to do.
Right.
That's about it. So like,
Right.
what, I feel fortunate, and
Beautiful.
I can't, it's funny, like, you're just kind of in it, whether, I'm sure, people can relate to this. Like, the older I get, the kind of younger I feel anyway. So I feel like I'm a better person, better musician now than I was 30 years ago. I mean, who knows? But like, that's how I
who's
feel.
to say, right? Yeah.
But that's how I feel. And so, and I think, I guess there is less stigma these days with being an older parent. People are having kids a little older, but I know 50 is kind of nuts, but I'm digging it. So it's all that matters. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So Chris, I usually ask people if there's anything you want to talk about, or like anything you want to say to the world, or like promote something, or whatever you want to do. I mean, it's up to you.
Well, first I want to say what a pleasure it is to talk with you under
Thanks,
these
man.
parameters. Is pretty fun, like having a reason to is good. We're not like comedians in cars, but it's still fun to kind of, joke around with you. It's been a while. I've known you since we were teenagers, and we've lived more than several lives together, over the years, for sure. And it's just super great to chat with you. And like I was saying earlier before you were recording, I guess I do have something to promote. This is so Hollywood. Well, I live in LA now, so it's,
Go for it, man. Go for it.
It's just cracking myself up. So I like most people looking for some sort of reason, inspiration. This past year has been tough, and I just kind of introverted in and started working on some solo repertoire, both on saxophone, but then I really started focusing on clarinet, which was really great for me, because I was able to sort of tap into some stuff that I really haven't had time or sort of the brain space to do. And that was sort of like my pre-jazz kind of awareness when I was, studying more like Bach and classical music. And I just kind of went there with clarinet, and I started transcribing some Baroque pieces and learning them like I would learn just by ear, and I have to tell you, man, if you want to remember how to play an instrument, just play some Bach partitas slowly, and I sort of use that process to get back into a mindset of playing clarinet. And I decided to make a solo record, and I chose a repertoire that I don't want to say eclectic, but it's pretty, I mean, I feel it's focused, but it's, there's some maybe outliers in the program that I picked. But the one song that really felt home base for me was playing Spasso's Trium, that you composed probably in, I'm going to say 1994, I'm guessing.
Probably,
and it's sort of that this
That's
great
you.
period of your music. I mean, if I think about like when you were composing moods and composing Spasso's Trium and all this really great, challenging, personal music. Anyway, so that song really stuck out for me, and I just was really shedding it like I was shedding, the Bach pieces, and I got so back familiar with you and your soul, and it was just you might not have, you wouldn't have known it, but I just felt very close to you all summer, like working on your piece. And
oh man.
And so anyway,
nice.
there's just one of, I did 15 pieces, and so that'll be out on Intact. It's all mastered up, so just whenever they release it sometime in the spring. But that's kind of how I sort of stayed sane. Obviously I feel, lucky that I, with my wife and my daughter, like, we're safe, nobody's been sick, and we're just freaking out like everybody else, but just, laying low. And but just artistically, like, like there's, our whole sort of world has been decimated. We thought Napster was bad, like, or streaming, like now it's just really, so trying to find inspiration through all that, I just kind of, went to the solo route and kind of found it by working on this repertoire for solo clarinet. And I did your piece, I did a piece of Hilmar's that we both know, and a piece of Schooley's, and some classics, by Train and Julius Hemphill and Ornette. And
Hilmar Jensen, the Icelandic guitarist.
Oh, sorry,
Hilmar
Hilmar Jensen,
the Icelandic bassist. Right.
Both beautiful musicians. And,
yeah, they're amazing. And it's funny. After I talked to you, I think it was like last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, whatever we talked, and you told me that you're doing Spassos. I went and I got my alto out and I went, and I'm I don't want to fucking learn this thing again. It's too hard.
It's a hard piece.
It's a hard song.
And I mean, you obviously, it's one of those pieces that you clearly wrote, on the alto, because the low notes, your favorite.
Yeah, it works
like,
it works perfectly on the alto. Yes.
But you get into some really crazy stuff. It was just like, man, your brain, like, what was going on here, and just like running with it, not questioning anything, just playing it, like, whether it's 30 years old or 400 years old, what's the difference really? Like, I just it was really fun and enlightening and inspiring, and I feel the better for it, for having gone through that. And makes me want to go look at moods again and some of your other gems from the late 80s, early 90s.
All right, so I had my period, but Chris, did you record that? I know you might have just said this, but maybe I didn't pay attention. In a room, in a church.
Yeah. So I flew to in October. So my whole plan was like, I was going to rehearse myself all summer and then get it done by October. So what happened is I auditioned for a teaching gig in Vienna, but I couldn't do it over Zoom, which, makes the most sense these days, right? So just to follow through, I'll skip to the end, but like just to follow through with the process, I actually went there to audition in person.
Wow.
which was crazy.
Yeah.
But I came back and I landed in LA, and then I drove down to San Diego and stayed at Anthony Burr, my good friend Anthony Burr, brilliant musician, fantastic clarinet player. And I stayed at his in-laws. They were out of town, and I quarantined at his place for 5 days, got a COVID test, and then I made the record there with his remote thing. He just gave me a mic of his, and that I recorded to GarageBand with one of those interfaces. What's it called? Everybody's using them, the Twin or the, anyway, with an interface, and went right to GarageBand, and that's where I did it, in his house, basically.
Wow. Oh yeah, it's what is that? The Scarlett. Is that what it's called? The Scarlett? What is that interface? Audio interface.
I'm drawing a blank. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Everybody's. I mean, it's a very common interface. Yeah, sounded. I mean, I was like, I can go to GarageBand. He's like, yeah, because I didn't want to have to download Pro. You know, my computer's like, you know, a million years old. I just didn't want to have to download Pro Tools and do that. I did my editing on the free Pro Tools, but I recorded everything to GarageBand. But really nice microphone, and I just tried to get the right sweet spot. But it was literally like, this place is like underneath the path of like San Diego International Airport. So like every 5 minutes, like you'd hear this, it's like this low rumble, and then, and then it was just like, oh man. And then like, of course, the second day, the blowers are outside, you know, in California, you know, it's very common to have people come and do your gardening. And so I was hearing that, and then cars screeching by. I was really not ideal, but you know, I got what I needed. You know, it's nice to actually, well, for one, to be by myself, obviously missing the family, but you know, like having some, you know, hadn't really been away since March 12th when I came home, you know, the day the ban went into effect. And so it was nice to have some space, and it was nice to be able to be focused, and also kind of scary and daunting, like, okay, I'm doing this, all right, you know. And I know like playing solo is like something we all do, you know, it's something like, yeah, you know, it's not something unfamiliar to me, but to do a whole repertoire solo was, yeah, it was intimidating. And I just wanted to approach it in the way that I approach things, of just like, okay, focus on this and get it done. You know,
what's interesting is that the one author I've had on the podcast, and then
the one what
author.
Oh, I thought you said opera. I was like, oh,
no,
you wrote
author.
an opera.
I am.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I am writing an opera, but
nice.
And also
again, I'm not surprised.
2 visual artists, and you know, they all create their art alone. They don't do it necessarily. I mean, sometimes, of course, maybe they do something in front of an audience.
Well, of course, we practice our art alone most of the time. You know, like
right. And but my gripe has been, well, I haven't been able to play live, man. Right. But they're like, yeah, like as an author, nobody reads my work until I'm done being alone and this guy's been working on the book for 3 years or something like that, you know, and he's like, you know, nobody's going to even like applaud it until it comes out.
I mean, I've been thinking a lot about that myself, you know, like I feel dependent upon gigs, but I've been sort of questioning, is it more about the stamina, you know, like, is it more like we're just, you know, especially with jazz and improvised music, like there's that momentum you get, you know, when you're like in it, you know, and that takes stamina, and like, you know, that takes doing gigs, and that takes like getting that flow happening and sort of the familiarity night after night. And I feel like, yeah, I miss that sort of working out and being, you know, feeling like, you know, you're top of your game. And I honestly, like when I was practicing, I tried to keep that in mind. I tried to like be performance minded and like force myself to play through the tune, not stop or like diddle, or, you know, like, so I tried to generate that kind of energy we get when we're performing on my own in the parking lot, you know, like I was aware of that and trying to sort of, you know, it's all like, you know, substituting, but trying to like, cause I miss playing. I miss that, all that as well. And I've always felt dependent upon gigs, you know, to sort of get things happening. And what do we do? Play along with records now? So,
Well,
but whatever it takes,
that's what a lot of people are doing, is playing along to records.
So since I was making a solo record, I was like, well, I'm going to treat this hour like I would do like concerts for, you know, the parking lot, you know, and just try to.
Amen. And I was telling that to, I think I was talking to Nicky Hamid, this gentleman, he's 80, he's from New Zealand. And he goes, I'd like to pretend. And I said, I remember when I was a kid, and I think even with you, Chris, but I know I did it on my own. I would have concerts in my bedroom. I would just put on concerts. I would pretend like I was playing to an audience, and I'd be like, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I think as we...
That's cute.
Right. But I think as we age, we're like, yeah, you know, where's my paycheck? Where's my dinner? You know, where's the hotel? Right? We start getting into the...
Yeah.
What?
No, I mean, that's... Yeah. I don't think really. I think we're jazzed about making music, and all the other stuff. It's like whatever. Like, I mean, I know you're saying that's a type of person that does that, but we're not like that. Like, you know, it's like, right? Like, I mean, because clearly well, yeah. I was going to make another joke, but
go ahead.
No, I mean. The rewards have to be in the process of making music for us, or else it would, that's not a, you know, wouldn't be worth it. You know?
I mean, when somebody is going to starve, you know, you start thinking about other things, right? And that's where I'm at. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to figure out ways to not starve,
mm-hmm.
and whatever that means. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm totally cool with doing the gig, but I have to admit, there are times where I'm like, I just want the paycheck. I don't really care about the gig. I just want the money. And I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I've talked to other people about it, and they're like, yeah, I go on the road.
I mean,
because
I wasn't trying. Yes, I hear you loud and clear, and I agree with you. I'm not trying to sound like everything is like some out of some purely like artistic, you know, just, yeah, we all make decisions in order to put food on the table. Yeah, of course. I mean, we're doing that, especially now, you know, like whatever I can, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, I would do, you know, if they presented themselves, you know, in order to make money that maybe aren't even music related, but like, yeah, I hear you, you know, like, but, I guess just, yeah, you're right. I mean, we need to make a living for sure. I just usually, when I'm talking like this, it's like, want to make sure it's, you know, the music is, you know, I guess I should say I feel fortunate that most of the musical situations I find myself in, I'm glad to be in. And then, you know, sometimes they pay great, sometimes maybe not as much as I need, but, you know, like, you know, try to be accommodating and just be open to the, you know, whatever's there. And then if it's not satisfying, you know, then don't do it, you know. But yeah, I'm just babbling around now. Just basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, I guess I hope it doesn't sound negative. I'm just trying to be realistic that it's not as if every musician is doing what they're doing because, man, I love making music. Sometimes people do stuff because they need to make money to
they're good at it. Yeah.
Correct.
Phone it in. Yeah. Yes.
Or I had somebody on the other day and they played on a cruise ship and they're like, I was just working.
Yeah.
And it was killing them, but they're like, I needed the money and I had no choice. I had to do the cruise ship gig, you know? It is what it is.
That's all. I mean, there is that work aspect to music, and I think that's, well, with a lot of our heroes, I think that's why their music is so strong and powerful, because they were working all the time, and maybe they weren't treating it like high art or something, you know, it's just a gig for them, but they were playing every night and killing it. Like, I'm sure if you played on a cruise ship doing the same songs every night, you're going to know those freaking songs, and you're going to know them well, and you're going to be able to play the shit out of them, you know? So there's no like diminishing musical, you know, whatever doing it's playing music, you know, but
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember, man, back in the Boston day, you know, like I remember doing like Haitian gigs. I was doing salsa gigs, you know, I was doing weddings, weird weddings, and like all kinds of gigs, you know, just to get the experience. Like if you're a young musician, that's one route, like, you know, to do a bunch of things to sort of know what you don't want to do, or, you know, so, and I'm glad I did all that stuff, you know, and there's still aspects of that still, you know, affect me now, like going on tangents, just want to know something new. What is it, you know, like exploring different music. And
right. I remember at one point we were listening to an old Human Feel song. We were passing it around just because we liked it. It was like from the 90s or something. And you said, Chris, said, I'm sorry for the Bulgarian shit. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I do. What was I?
It was like, maybe it was a live gig we did or something, like a bootleg, but you're like, I'm sorry for the Bulgarian shit.
I'm sorry. I stand by that. I'm sorry for making you guys learn all that Bulgarian stuff.
Yeah,
because for me, it was like this new passion, and I was trying to find, you know, ways to work like with everything. And it was just, I was laughing. It was done sort of as, you know, with some lightness involved. I wasn't like beating myself up about it.
No,
like,
it's like, you know, it was so cool that we got the experience that you gave us to understand that music in a different way. I mean, for me, like learning how to play in 7/8 was, you know, 7/8 time was Chris Speed. Like that's how I learned. Well, and Hilmar Jensen, but you know, otherwise, I don't know if I would have learned how to do that. And like those blips, as you called them, you know, the little turns on the,
yeah, all the little ornaments.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you knew me back then. Like, I think when I got into something, you know, there was a passion there. Yeah, for sure. You know, I just fell in love with that music, and like I fell in love with jazz or whatever, and just wanted to sort of bring it in. And obviously, like, you know, when you're first trying to introduce something like that, it's, you know, it can be fraught with maybe some naivety or, you know, youthful, you know, exuberance. I don't know, but
it was just cool. I appreciate
it. And also I can say that there's definitely like measures of odd rhythms in your music, you know, like it wasn't like a big mystery. It was more like, oh, here's like a folk tradition, as if jazz is a folk tradition or whatever, like somewhere I didn't know. And I just, yeah. Well, I have to give, you know, obviously props to our old friend Matt Dario as well. And he sort of was one that kind of turned me on to a lot of this music, you know, because while we were living in Boston, I also played with Orange Them Blue, under George Schuler's band with Matt Dario that you also played in later.
Yep.
And so I just remember basically rating Matt's record collection. And the Bulgarian Women's Choir was just like sort of what a great life changer that was. What a great group. Just sonically, yeah, just to sort of be enchanted by. And I kind of found all that, you know, crazy music. And
I remember you bringing those recordings home back when you had to do that, and like putting that music on in our place and listening to that woman's Bulgarian choir and just being like, what? Like, who the fuck makes this music? Right? Like,
hey man, I have a question. Do you remember, so that place we lived on Boylston Street?
Yeah.
Because I also recorded Retrogression, which, you know, I wrote for Human Feel as well. But I did that as solo clarinet version of that as well. I've kind of kept that around, like doing workshops and stuff. Like if I need it, I'll sometimes bring that in as sort of like a way to, you know, sort of do some more free kind of playing. And
show everybody how great you are.
And
it's a great song.
But anyway, I think I remember writing that song. I wasn't playing clarinet much at the time, but it's when we were living in Boylston. I think I wrote it in that gross bedroom I was living in next to the kitchen on the alley with the rats. And I think I wrote that song on clarinet, Retrogression, in that room at that time, like maybe 90 or 91. Does that ring a bell or nah?
My memory is that you, and this is going to be totally un-PC in this day and age, but you like held a gun to my head and you're like, you're playing this on bass clarinet. I wrote it for clarinet and you're going to play it on bass clarinet. Retrogression, I'm talking about. I was like, okay. And I remember Gunther Schuller, the composer, saying he recognized that it was a tone row, and you were like, you're going to play it on clarinet or bass clarinet. And I was like, I didn't really play bass clarinet then. You know that, right? Like I had borrowed somebody's bass clarinet. I was kind of just like tinkering. And what?
I'm remembering you.
So why do you even ask me if you're going to correct me? I'm just.
I was trying to remember when you got the bass clarinet.
I just had an interview with that guy who got me my first bass clarinet, Russ.
And was that for like, were you with the Ether Orchestra? Did you need it for that band?
Correct. And he thought I owned one, and I finally had to confess that I didn't own one.
That's sounding familiar.
And that was 1990. We're guessing years here. 94, maybe something like that. Maybe before that, 92. We were uncertain. Sorry.
Right. Can you? Were you in Boston or New York?
I was in Boston, and I was working at Tower Records, and I did not own a bass clarinet at that time, but I had this gig, this tour that I had to go on, and Russ had to get me a bass clarinet, and
yeah, okay, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
But you were like, you're learning this song, or whatever the fuck that song is.
That's close enough. It's hilarious. Well, anyway, I think I wrote it in that apartment. Anyway, woo.
Let me just ask one last question I wrote down.
Okay.
As a label owner, and it's such a hot topic, how do you feel about streaming? How do you feel about what's going on where basically we can get anything we want for free?
I mean, I can't have an impassioned argument again. I mean, it's so clear, like
you don't have to argue. I'm just
curious. No, I'm not arguing with you, but just making the point how awful streaming is. But it's kind of like, it's really that, join them, or what's the phrase,
If you can't beat them, join them, I think is the phrase you're thinking.
Yeah,
of,
thank you. I mean, I just want to, like, when I can, I just want to, like, sort of push, like, sort of, strategies that musicians can still somewhat benefit from. And that's like, Bandcamp, where you can actually sell product and people go there and buy product and you can actually make little money. The streaming is just like, it's very deflating situation for musicians like us, and as a record label owner, like it's just one of those, grudgingly, okay, I guess put it up there, and then just not expect anything out of it. But some musicians feel like, well, it's better to be there than not be there, and just respect that. And I have stuff on there. I have stuff that I haven't put on there, and so I don't know. I'm not gonna. I don't have any insight that people haven't already sort of figured out by now. So.
Right, and I mean, so you're basically a record label owner, but you're putting your music out on a different label because of what?
Oh, I mean, well, that's something different. I mean, I've been putting my music out on other I mean, I started label owner. I started Skrill Records as, as sort of a frame for our scene in Brooklyn, back um, a while ago now. And I'm glad it's there. Like, I still put stuff out on my label. Sometimes I can't afford to put stuff out on my own label, because when you're the label owner, then you have to fund everything. And I've never been in a position to really be able to do that, and especially now. So just to be able to have some support, in a situation, is much appreciated. I'm still doing stuff with Skrill. Endangered Blood, all of our releases are on Skrill, and the Clarinets. It's a band of mine. If you don't know, it's 3 improvising clarinets. Andrew has actually sat in with us before, and that's all on Skrill. So I'm definitely putting stuff on my label, and then I'm still supporting like a kind of a extension of the Brooklyn creative music scene, and so it's still happening. There's like 50 something releases now. So
well, you have 50 records on that label.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And I stand behind it. I'm glad it's there, but it's an art. It's like a musician's. There's no publicist, no funding, no nothing. So it's a labor of love, and all the artists. It's like basically like artists.
So Chris, let's paint a picture for people. So let's just go with that. You're a label owner, okay? Because I'm giving you a compliment. You actually have kind of owned the label. So what does that take? You've got to help get the music recorded, mastered. You got to pay the artist to make the graphics, right? You got to get the stuff printed up. I mean, I think you'd be surprised how many people don't know about this stuff. Like,
right. Well, when I started the label, okay, here's that. When I say that it's artist funded, at this point, the artist pays for everything. As the label owner, I don't do anything except I just facilitate them putting their music out. So that's where it's at now. When I started the label, like I was paying for the art, and I think I was getting masters even then, but I would pay for the art, and so there was never a situation where I was actually producing anything. It's always been sort of artist oriented, artist funded. So I would get masters, I would pay for the art, and I'm still getting out of debt from, those first years of doing that. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like once you start that road, it's kind of hard to dig yourself out of. In any case, right now, the label as it is like the artist, they record, they make their music, they get it mastered, and then they contact and get it pressed, and then they can put Skrill whatever on it, and then we put it up on Bandcamp, and I put it on the website, and boom. That's it. So right. There's no big mystery there.
Right. And but I talked to this very well-known writer and critic, and he was complaining that I was charging $25 for my vinyl. I said, I spent $12,000 making that record.
Right? I don't care who it is. F him, F
right.
that. You've like put your soul, money, you financed that yourself. Correct. And he's complaining to you?
He was
That's
complaining.
Crazy talk.
Why can you charge $25 for a vinyl? And I said, because I spent $12,000 making it. Okay, it was $11,885. Whatever.
End of story.
Like, and no, and he said, he goes, can you show us the math? So I wrote it all out. I talked about how much the studio cost, what I paid the band, what I paid to get the records pressed. I did 4-color. I did a gatefold.
You are being generous to that person. Believe me, that person should be thanking you for like showing them some compassion about like your process rather than like kicking them out the door.
But wow. I think people think, man, you make a record, you like spend $100, man, and you like record your music in your house, man. It's like it's all easy on Logic or whatever you're using.
Hopefully that's not the majority thought out there. Like
I think I might be like further out into that world than you, where I'm experiencing these people who have no fucking idea that, like, like with Human Feel or with like your record
All
label,
funded. We funded that ourselves.
yes, like the tens and thousands of dollars we put into that music, and like, what are we selling? We're selling some copies, but I was like, with my vinyl, I'm just going to charge $25 and try to make my money back.
Yes.
And my business partner was like, actually, he worked it out. He said you should charge $43.12. He had this whole like thing worked out.
Yeah, whatever. Like, and then if you sell a certain amount, then you'll
you're covered.
something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But this writer was just like, all right, show us the math. So I did. And he goes, okay, well, $25 is the highest I'm going to pay for anything. And I was like, yeah, but
again, you're being generous for even entertaining him, but it sounds like something else is going on. Like he's messing. Maybe he wanted something for free and you didn't give it to him for free. So he was just like giving you some SHIT, like.
I actually,
so I hope,
offered to send him my vinyl, which is what started the conversation. And so it's like, my point isn't about bashing this writer.
No, whatever. Yeah.
My point is that people don't understand that to make a record pretty much is about $8,000 to $10,000. I mean, pretty much from beginning to end, pretty much, right? Like that's low end, right?
What, do you have a band? You're going to the studio? How many days are you recording? Who's going to master? Yeah, who knows? I mean, sure. I mean, are you paying any? Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
A lot of variables there.
But it was so frustrating to me that I had to do
you had
the
to
math.
argue. Yeah, you had to argue your point
I didn't
to something
argue.
that
I just did the math and I said, here is the math. And this is what I figured out is that my price point should be over $40 according to my business manager. But I was like $25, is that cool? And he goes, yeah, I guess, if you want to do it. And
yeah, again, there's some other, that's just, that's weird.
There is, right. But as a presentation in this conversation, and as you being a label owner, I don't think people generally understand when they're listening to Spotify or Amazon Music or iTunes,
right.
The energy and time and money that they're all the same. Energy is money, all the time and energy that went into making that recording. And they're like, yeah, I pay my $12 a month. You get your, your fee. And I really think that, many of us would be surprised how many folks are like, what? Nah, you're cool. It's like, no, I'm not. I spent fucking $18,000 on my big band record. And, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's, it's a ever-changing, world dynamic that we're trying to grapple with, and making money from a recording is not easy. I guess back in the old days, you would get paid by the label a living wage of some sort, and then they would steal the musicians from, royalties or whatever. I think, it's always been probably a tough go, but it's just, it gets a little, just the models are just like, it's just becoming more and more kind of blatant and extreme, the disparity of it all, and then just the blatancy with it. And, I'm sure you saw the recent comments that Spotify guy made of just like, well, musicians just need to change the way they look at their output, and it's like, how like tone deaf and just like, but he's the gatekeeper. So I think that's why we need to be vigilant and creative with the way that we do things. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't have any answers. Like for a while they're like, doing some touring. I remember like, well, even with us, like with the record we put out, on Skirl, I remember sort of my point being like, if we can tour, we'll make back our money. And it's that thing, like there was a point where you were able to sell product on the road, and maybe that's even changing now, with the younger audience. So we need to be inventive and find a way to be able to stay in there, making music, and people's gonna still want to
Sell
listen
t-shirts.
to music.
Sell
Yeah,
t-shirts,
merch,
man.
merch, sell hats.
Man. Sell the hat, sell the t-shirt, and it's you're a very humble person, Chris, and you always have been your entire life. I've always appreciated that about you. I have not been so humble in my life, and it's I sometimes I wonder if we understand the impact it has when we say something from our perspective. Because I was talking to a TV exec who is now retired, a friend of mine, and I'm trying to get her on the show, but she doesn't want to be on camera. She's more like, producer. And she had no idea when she was listening to Siri, or what's the other one, Alexa, that I was like, yeah, I don't get any money when you play my music on those platforms. She's like, what? No, you get royalties. I was like, no, I
hear
don't.
I hear you. People don't know. Yeah.
No, and she is she just turned 71 yesterday, and she had no idea that, like, when she was listening to my music, she's like, I'm supporting Andrew. I was like, yeah, they don't. Right. It's funny, but at the same time, if that person who worked for, like, think David Letterman or Saturday Night Live, like this kind of thing, if she doesn't understand, right, that, yeah, no, we don't get jack shit. I mean, we might get a small check, right? But at the same time, I want to go on the mountaintop because I'm a loud, obnoxious guy, and be like, wait, this critic who I'm not going to call out right now. I'd like to have him on the show and talk to him directly about it. Look, motherfucker, I put, like, a lot of my own money into this record and to put my vinyl out. And so I have to charge this amount of money to make anything back.
Yeah.
And thankfully I did good with that record. But the point is that, or I talked to a visual artist on the podcast the other day about Bandcamp. I just bring Bandcamp up casually, and they're like, what's Bandcamp?
Right.
They don't even know what Bandcamp is.
Right. It's musicians, right? It's our sounding box, right? Musicians know it, but maybe the general public isn't as aware.
He had no idea.
Yet.
He goes, I don't understand. What's Bandcamp? I was like, that's where you can buy my music. He's like, okay. Right.
Well, yeah, you're fighting the battle. I mean, that's a lot, it's a lot to take on, and, you want to be writing music and doing your thing, and, like, having to convince people to, like, do, the right thing of, like, actually purchasing your whatever. Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot. So giving you props for that fight. I don't have it in me to really, go there, I guess. But I guess if I was having a conversation with somebody, I would try to, let them know, like, we're not getting anything out of that. But seems sort of, hey,
like
we're having so much fun, like, talking about the past, and then you're like,
well, I just,
without streaming,
I just, first of all, I can edit all this out, but okay. Second of all, I don't mind, and I'm not fighting anybody. I'm just throwing information out there for people to, like, understand. And my good friend,
well, let me ask you, how are you selling your music?
I'm sucking a lot of cock, basically.
I mean, you mean sort of like begging people to buy it, or like
Correct.
reaching out, outreach, like,
all
buy my music? Yeah. So you're doing, like, email lists and
social media.
Okay. So I mean, that's kind of the era we're living in, like, yeah.
It's for me, it's not a battle. It's just throwing information out there and letting people either accept it or not accept it. And it's okay. I
Right.
don't really care if somebody says, I want to use Spotify, man. I don't care what you say, Andrew. I'm like, okay, fine. But the reality is, if you don't know the information, then you
Yeah. I hear you.
yeah.
The thing is, like, getting back to like that we're musicians, like you have like you have a whole like back catalog, you have a whole oeuvre of your compositions, your music, and like it should be available to people, and people will find it who want to know it, and maybe they'll hear it on Spotify and be like, oh man, I want to buy the whole record, or they'll figure it out, like. So I think just got to do what you got to be, you, right? Which is what you do. And so people will find your music who need to find it. That's sort of me being like kind of positive, acceptance of like, the world we live in. And we could have those conversations like, is there even a place for our music anymore? Like I just try not even go there. You just got to do what we do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can I tell a story? And I can always edit this stuff out, but can I tell a story?
Yeah,
and
please.
It's not disparaging to you. It's actually kind of funny. So we're in Spain. We're on tour, you and me, okay? And we are with some other people who I will not name. And you'll remember the story when I tell it. And me and these other people are in a hotel room, and
oh yeah,
we're
this
having
is great. Yeah,
we're having
this one.
We're having a cigarette. I'm having a cigarette in a room that you're not supposed to smoke in the hotel, and one of the guys is texting, trying to get cocaine and some herb.
A lot of shenanigans going on in that room that
right
night.
we were having a good time, and one of the dudes was kind of freaking out because like, man, you can't be smoking in the room, man. And somebody else was like, I gotta get some coke and some weed.
You guys are banging around, dropping, crashing bottles,
going crazy. Yeah, totally going crazy,
screaming at each other,
like literally like old school, like flipping couches upside down in the room and shit.
Yeah.
And then you're in your room like going, hey, to your daughter.
Skyping my daughter.
Goo goo gaga. Yeah, right. You're
really quietly like, oh Marnie, yeah. I'm basically Skyping my daughter, and who gets their like door banged on.
Right. You like they're like, sir, can you keep it down?
Keep it down?
Right.
Yeah. That's actually that's a good story. See, you're the cat for that. That's great.
I love that story so much and I try to be as cool as possible about the conditions, although I am not embarrassed who I am.
Right? No, I mean, you guys are just like,
but it's just funny.
Like,
you're like, man, Marnie, I love you, or my daughter,
like,
I love you.
Yeah, I'm like, oh sweetie, oh I miss you.
They're like, knock, like keep it down.
It was really funny, and I think, and it was like, for some reason, I feel like the room was so small that they could see that it was my daughter, and I think they were like, felt ashamed, when they were maybe, I don't know. That's how I picture it in my brain. I don't think that's really what happened. But
yeah, well, in my brain, I just love this story because I'm like, that's the stuff people don't know about.
Well, that's a funny, sweet story. I mean, it's yeah.
Right, and we all had to get up the next day at like 5 a.m. to go catch our flights and do the whole thing over again. Sure. It's like, yeah, you say sure, but people don't know this. Maybe some people watching this are like, yeah, I've been on tour, but it's grueling, man. Like you got to spend an hour with your daughter and get busted by your neighbor, in the hotel. And
I mean, also, I've joked about this with friends. All you have to do is just, especially if that person is, a musician, is just like, wake them up at 3 a.m. and say, okay, perform on the highest level now, go.
Right.
Improvise for 2 hours,
right. Go. And also it's in the contract.
Oh no, you don't get a shower. No.
Right. No, you don't get a shower, and it's in the contract. You have to do 2 sets, and they have to be 45 minutes each. And that's what we're paying you for, right? It's like, yeah.
I think it's just being, you just learn how to like, I guess that sort of ideal setting just doesn't exist, like there's always going to be something tired or hungry or grumpy, or that's why it's good to, be out there in a trusting situation, you know. Yeah, you got to give each other slack too, you know. It's that.
And again, man, all I can tell you is that I'm so grateful that you were okay with this. And
yeah, man,
excuse me,
come on.
And thank you. No, I'm just saying thank you. That's all.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking me, Andrew. Like, I know it's probably, you know, this brave of you too. I mean, you know, we could have gone other directions too with this, but you know, we're family, you know, like there's a lot of history there, and it's just fun to get to share the positive, fun stuff, you know.
I had no inhibitions about if it went in any other direction, and I did have thoughts that Jim might Zoom bomb, and I was like, all right, I'll just deal with it. I actually don't care. I love you, Chris, and with that playing likewise. This Fassos Trium, I mean, like if that's what you're doing, man, you're killing it. You've always been nailing it, man. I don't know. We can't use that term anymore.
Well, hopefully you take it as an expression of gratitude for you.
I do. That's
exactly my only point. That's the only motivation for that, you know, and it being a killing tune, you know. So
yeah, well, you know,
and maybe it's hard to play and nobody else can do it. So that's just.
I have to like go back and like try to remember. I told everybody, it's like if I have Chris Speed on the show, he's gonna remember all the shit that I don't.
There's some good stuff I remember, but you have a good memory too. So it's not like you've joked about me being sort of the librarian. I mean, there's some stuff I can remember and scores I've kept somewhere, but you have a pretty wicked memory too for some stuff. You didn't remember Scoochies though.
No.
Drinking like those Henry Weinhardts. Sneaking into like it's bad. Yeah, well.
Scoochies, man. That's like
it's like a weird
Seattle,
disco.
Right?
Yeah, it was a weird disco. I think this is.
It was like the
maybe
80s.
Like 1985, 86. Right. Let's say Nirvana wasn't playing in Pioneer Square somewhere. We were going to like a dance place. Crazy.
The younger folks I've had on the show, when I talk about my age, I'm like, I'm just from the 1900s. I'm like from the 1900s.
No, it's the same.
And like, I was like, when were you born? They're like 2001, man. I'm like, what? Like, how is that possible? You know, you're born in 2001 or 2000. Somebody was born in 2008, right? 2008. I was like, what? Yeah, I'm from the 1900s, and so.
Well, just remember, you know, we knew each other when we were that age. You know, like.
Yeah. Oh, I don't care. I'm done.
No, I'm just. Oh no, I'm just saying that. It's just go back to like. It's pretty easy just to transport yourself to that, you know, being in high school or college, you know, that age, you know. Try to tap into that energy. Like.
I have tapped, and that's exactly why I'm doing the show, because I'm like, I just at this point I'm like, you know. If I'm like the old fucking guy on the TV, I'm like, all right, I'll be that guy.
Yeah, do that guy, man.
I think I'm doing that guy, but
do that guy. Why not?
Crazy shit. And I don't know, Chris, man. Should we wrap it up? It's
yeah, let's wrap it up. I'll let you get to bed, bud. All right.
Hold on. Let me just pull us out. Thank you, Chris Speed, for being here. I appreciate it so much. I've had a great time, man.
Me too,
Love
Andrew.
you.
What a pleasure. Right back at you.
Thanks, man. And I hope you are safe and well and healthy in all this.
Yeah, I miss Brooklyn a lot. Miss you. So stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourself. And I'm glad you're doing this. It's keeping you sharp.
Is it? All right, that's good. Staying sharp. Chris B said I'm staying sharp, ladies and gentlemen. All right, brother. Love you, man. Peace. I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Bye, Andrew.
All right, man. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Constant Constance. Tune in every week for new conversations. And if you want even more, check out Andrew's Patreon for more exclusive content and additional conversations. Hosted and produced by Andrew D'Angelo. Edited and mixed by Lucy Little. Original music by Andrew D'Angelo and Maximilian Moore D'Angelo. Intro is Henrietta Weeks. Thanks so much. See you next time.
You
Sounded
fucking,
beautiful.
yeah, you fucking rocked it. Like
You
she
killed
doesn't,
it.
she doesn't know she says podcast, right? Like she doesn't even know.